Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksuranmilitanyena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanyamabhistam Savitanyena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Karamaya Didanti Swapadantikam. First of all, I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my Diksha and Shiksha Guru, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Asutara Sata Sri Srimad Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Then I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my Shiksha and Sannyas Guru, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Asutara Sata Sri Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of my two Shiksha Gurus, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Satala Sata Sri Srimad Srila Govinda Goswami Maharaj and Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Satala Sata Sri Srimad Srila Bhakti Balabatirtha Bhakti Vigyan Bharti Goswami Maharaj. I also offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Bhakti Balabatirtha Goswami Maharaj, who is the guru of so many disciples here. And I offer my humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of the Sri Rupanuga Sampradaya, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Prabhupada, Srila Gaura Das Babaji, and Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Okay, please try not to make too much noise. So we're in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, at the home of Krishna Murthy Prabhu and his wife.
Yes.
And I'm speaking to people on Facebook. That's why I'm saying all this, because there's, how many people are watching now?
There are around 20.
20. So there's a bunch of people out there watching. So I'm explaining to them where I am and what we're doing. So we had Kirtan, now we're going to have a class. And as I said earlier, we're going to be speaking from Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So I want to talk a little bit about transcendental sound vibration and its relationship to mundane sound. So we're going to start out with the first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Janmad yasya yataha anaya ritarattascha arteshu abhigyanasvara tene brahma riddhaya arikave muyanti yatsuraya. That tene brahma riddhaya, into the riddha, into the heart of Lord Brahma, this transcendental sound vibration was injected from the flute of Krishna. Krishna played the transcendental flute, and from that flute, the transcendental sound vibration entered into the ears of Lord Brahma and then into his heart. This is spoken, this concept of transcendental sound going through the ear into the heart is in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, 25th chapter, verse 25. Sattam prasangam mama virya samvido bhavanti rit karna. Rit means heart, karna means ear. Rit karna rasayana katha. That the katha enters through the ear and touches the heart. So from the very beginning of the Brahma Samhita, we are hearing that transcendental sound vibration has entered into the heart of Lord Brahma. He's carrying the weight. He's carrying the weight of the transcendental sound. This is what the parampara is about. When they say Guru is heavy, Guru is heavy. Why is he heavy? What is it that Guru is carrying that makes him so heavy? The modes of material nature in this world are pushing everybody around from place to place, from here to there, inside, outside, upside down. In this way, the modes of material nature are causing so many disturbances. But Guru is sitting undisturbed. Undisturbed. Nothing can make Guru falter, because he's carrying a weight. What is that weight that holds him down? It is this. Tene Brahma Hridayadi Kave Muyanti Yatsura. It is the transcendental sound vibration from the flute of Krishna, which has entered into the ears of Brahma and then entered into his heart, and he has given it to Narada, Narada to Vyas, Vyas to Madhva, etc. The parampara is about carrying the weight and transferring the weight of that sound forward from one guru to the next. It is a very heavy weight. It is a very powerful weight. And what that sound does is it reveals everything. Everything is in that sound. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagwatam, in the 8th chapter, verse number 15 in the purport, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Krishna's body is made of mantras. Transcendental sound. In the 4th verse of the Brahma Samhita, Srila Saraswati Thakur explains in the purport that the Gayatri mantra, specifically the Gopal mantra, specifically the Gopal mantra and Kam Gayatri. I was going to say both, but you jumped ahead. Please don't correct me. When this particular mantra, the Gopal mantra, is recited, because that's what's being talked about in the 4th verse. In the 4th verse, the Gopal mantra and the 18 syllables of the Gopal mantra are being discussed. And they're discussing how the 18 syllables are divided, okay, into 6 divisions, and how they create a yantra, a form. So you have mantra, sound, and you have yantra, form, and you have tantra, power. Sound creates form, which has power, potency. So you have to understand how that works. So here, in this 4th verse, Saraswati Thakur says that this Gopal mantra, this form, this yantra which you see, is non-different from the form of Radha and Krishna. So we see that the acharyas are making the point again and again that the name and the form are the same. They're non-different. How many times Srila Prabhupada told us Krishna's name and Krishna's form are the same? Krishna is non-different from his name. He said it very simply, but if we look into the depths of the Shastra, we see where the previous acharyas are making these statements in a very detailed manner. So what happens? This sound vibration is giving us an understanding of Advaigyan Paratattva, the one non-dual substance. Vedanti tat tattva vidam tattvam yajnanam advaya. So here it is stated that those who know Vedanta, Vedanti tat tattva vidam, the knowers of Vedanta, tattvam yajnanam advaya, they know that the advaya, the non-dual substance, they jnanam, advaigyan, paratattva, has three aspects: Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavaneti. The Brahman aspect of the Advaigyan Paratattva is what is worshipped by the followers of the Upanishads. The Paramatma aspect is that which is worshipped by the yogis. And Bhagavan is worshipped by the bhaktas. And it is the Bhagavan form in which both the Brahman and Paramatma form are contained. Therefore, that non-dual substance in its ultimate reality is Bhagavan Sri Krishna. We see in the Brahma Samhita, it opens with this point. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. He is the cause of all causes. He is the cause of all causes. And he is non-different. His name and his form are non-different from each other. So what we see, what we learn, what we understand from following this line of thought is, how do we get to the point of the position where we can realize that transcendental sound will remove all of the obstacles of the material world. The material world is also made of sound. In the third canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, verse 26th chapter, verse 32, it talks about how the sound vibration is the beginning of the creation of the gross aspects of the material world. Page won't. It's missing a page. It's printed improperly. Verse 31 is written here, and then, okay. All right, now it's here, okay. Tamasach. So, now, the beginning of chapter 26 talks about the development of the material nature from Pradhan. This is very important. Why is it important? Because it is the concept that helps us to understand the relationship of the Vedanta to quantum physics. There are several personalities who talked about the development of quantum physics. First was Heisenberg, who actually won the Nobel Prize as the co-creator, the co-founder, inventor of quantum physics. Heisenberg was writing many different computations, but he couldn't come to the conclusion. Then he was invited to go to Calcutta, India, to give a series of lectures on mathematics. At that time, Heisenberg met with Rabindranath Tagore. So Rabindranath Tagore then had some conversations with him, and he explained to him that what you're talking about is Advaita Vedanta. So he taught him Advaita Vedanta. So there's different classifications of Vedanta. There's Advaita, Vishishta Dvaita, Dvaita Dvaita, Shuddha Dvaita, Dvaita, and Achinta Veda Veda Tattva. So there are different classifications. The natural commentary on Vedanta is the commentary which are given by Vedavyas, known as the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the natural commentary on Vedanta Sutra. But what happened was, Vyasadeva, Sankaracharya wanted to push his own conception of impersonalism as a means of trying to remove the Buddhists from India. He had to reestablish Hindu Dharma. And so Sankaracharya tried to reestablish Hindu Dharma, or Vedic culture, not Hindu because we're not Hindus. I'm going to talk about that in a second. He tried to reestablish Vedic culture by giving the explanation in the Vedanta Sutra that was similar to the Buddhist conception. The Buddhist conception of voidism. Srila Prabhupada came to the West, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. Shunyavadi means void, nothing. And Nirvishesha means impersonal. So, Paschatya Deshatarine, he came to the Western countries in order to destroy these misconceptions. So Sankaracharya gave this conception of Advaita Vedanta, which was a way of explaining Buddhism in a different philosophical framework so as to gradually pull the followers of the Vedas back into Vedic culture, away from the Buddhist culture. If we look at all of the four Vedas, if we look at the 108 Upanishads, if we look at the 18 Puranas, if we look at Vedanta Sutra itself, nowhere will we find the word Hindu. Hindu doesn't exist. Hindu is a word that Persians and Greeks used to identify those people who lived around and beyond the Sindhu River. And so it had a geographical nomenclature, identification. Later, as many Mohammedans came and settled in India due to different wars and territorial disputes, the word Hindu was then again used to identify those persons who originally came from India as opposed to those persons who had moved there to conquer it. Then certain religious authors during the medieval period in the 15th and 16th century used to identify those persons as Hindus when they wrote their religious literature. Of course, this was not done by the Goswamis. The 6 Goswamis in the Gaudiya Vaishnava lineage never used the word Hindu to describe the followers of Lord Chaitanya, nor did any of the Bengali authors who lived in the Bengal area use the word Hindu as a way of describing those persons. they wanted to establish the actual transcendental, and because Vedanta Sutra is not a religion, it's a science. It's a science of spiritual realization. And just like at one time when Heisenberg and Schrödinger and Max Planck and others had promulgated their conception of quantum physics, Einstein, Rosen, and Podolsky, they argued against it, and they dissented, and they made their scientific perspective. And so scientists will dissent, and they will make different scientific perspectives on the same conception. So on this conception of Advait Gyan Paratattva, the original conception was given in Bhagavatam by Vedavyas. But then Shankaracharya gave the Advaita Vedanta conception. Then this was dissented. The dissent was done by Ramanuja and Madhva. They gave Vishishta Dvaita and Dvaita. They dissented. No, it's not Advaita. It's Vishishta Dvaita, or it's Advaita, but it's qualified by something. But even in these conceptions, their conception of the absolute truth was not totally complete. For instance, there are two theological conceptions. Not theological, more scientific conceptions of this, to go back to the, to the actual language. The idea that this whole thing is a theology was something concocted by by Max. Was it Max? No. It was concocted by one German. Please give me a tissue. Where's the tissues? I thought I had the tissues up here. Max Mueller. Max Mueller was the one who promulgated the concept that it was Hinduism and made it into a religious conception, and then introduced it into academia as such. And he was also the one who introduced this concept of the Aryan invasion, which is a complete concoction. In fact, Max Mueller, when he was trying to figure out the age of the Aryan invasion, what he did is he spoke with the Anglican ministers, and they were the ones who told him, based on the Bible, the age of the universe is 6,000 years old. So he based his measurement of the Aryan invasion on their conception of a 6,000-year-old universe. So why anybody insists today that this is a real scientific conception when we all know that the universe is not 6,000 years old is beyond me. It's just, the stubbornness of academia. They never like to give up. And Carl Sagan even wrote that it was only the Vedic scholars who actually figured out the timeline of the history of the development of the universe exactly the way modern scientists did. And so he said their calculations were not different from modern scientific calculations. So we got it right. No other religion got it right because we're not a religion. We're a science, a spiritual science. And so in the scientific conceptions of Vedanta, Shankaracharya is saying that it is Advaita, this non-dual substance is Brahman, and that it becomes, the material world is manifest by a transformation. Okay, it's called Vastu Parinamva. That there's a transformation of a thing, an item, the Vastu, the Brahman, into Maya. What Ramanujacharya does is he says Brahman is the effulgence of Narayan. But Narayan transforms into this world. So he continues along the line of Vastu Parinamvad, only he takes it back one step from the effulgence of God to God himself. You understand? Okay, now, beyond that, we see what is done in Achinta Veda Veda Tattva. In Achinta Veda Veda Tattva by Baldev Vijayabhushan, he introduces Shakti Parinamvad. Parasya Shakti or Vividaiva Shruyate, that Bhagavan, Sri Krishna, the ultimate in Advaigyan Paratattva, has Shaktis, and that the Shakti is the one that manifests this world. So now we're going to look at this in the third canto, 26th chapter, 32nd verse. I hope you're able to follow all of this. I'm covering a lot of ground here. But we're going to come right back to where I started. Tamasach vikurvanad bhagavad virya choditat shabdamatram vibhut tasman navam shrotam tu sabdagam. So, this is the 32nd verse of the 26th chapter. But actually, if we look at the beginning of the 26th chapter, we see that these concepts, just as Josephson, if you're familiar with quantum physics, you know about Brian Josephson, who made the Josephson effect. And Brian Josephson has made a statement, just like Heisenberg, he made a statement that the concepts of quantum physics will not be hard to understand by anyone who studied Vedanta. And Josephson wrote that Vedanta and Sankhya are the keys to mind and thought as promulgated in the concepts of quantum physics. So here we see the highest form of mathematics has its roots in Vedanta and Sankhya. So how is it possible that it has its roots there? In Sankhya, we see, as it's explained in this 26th chapter, that originally we start out with the pradhan, the undifferentiated material elements. This is what the Western scientists call matter, complete matter. It has no other form. So these elements, how do they differentiate themselves? According to them, to the scientists, there's an explosion. And this explosion makes all the elements break into many pieces, and then they develop planets and spinning and all of these things. Of course, we've never seen an explosion create anything. If we go down the street where there's construction going on and we see all the materials are there, we see the cement and the wood and the steel and everything is there, and stones, etc. And then we throw a dynamite in there. It's not going to make a building. It's going to make a hole. That's all an explosion does, is make a hole. And the only one who gets any benefit out of that are landscape artists. Otherwise, making holes in the ground is not a creation. But what we're going to see here is that creation in this 32nd verse happens when there's a desire for conjugal relations between Vishnu and Lakshmi. Then we can understand why. Because everything is based on this. You know, there was a great Alexander the Great, when he went to India, he was enamored with the science, okay? And all of the things, the Vedic philosophy and logic and science. So he asked one day, who knows everything? I want to speak to that person. So they told him, at the top of this mountain, there's one yogi, he knows all the things. So he climbs the mountain and he goes up there, and there's this yogi sitting naked in front of a hole, a cave. And he's just sitting in the sun, and he's breathing and taking in the sun. So Alexander the Great goes and stands in front of him, and he says, I'm Alexander the Great. I own everything from Greece to India. I can give you whatever you want. Land, palaces, princesses, money, whatever you like, I can give you. I want your knowledge. Please tell me what you want, and then give me your knowledge. So the yogi looked at him and he said, can you move to the side? You're blocking my sun. So the yogi doesn't need anything. He's naked. He doesn't need a house. He doesn't need anything. Why? There's no sex. When there's sex, then things are needed. As soon as you have sex, as soon as you have a family, then you have to have a house, you have to have a job, you have to have cars, business, work, this, that. So everyone is working. What are they working for? In order to maintain their sex. So sex is how everything is created. So that, from the perspective of Bhagwat and Vedanta, this is how this universe is created. By the transcendental desire of Lakshmi and Narayan to conjugate. So in this verse it says, when egoism and ignorance is agitated by the sex energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the subtle element of sound is manifested. So here we see that it's saying agitated by the sex energy. So when we read in the Brahma Samhita about Mahavishnu glancing on this pradhan, okay, the non-differentiated elements, what do we see? We see that his halo, even his glance cannot touch the pradhan. Nothing from Vishnu can touch material nature. So how does the glance work? Sadashi Vishnu from Vaikuntha transforms into Shambhu, Shiva. He becomes the halo. And he becomes the lingam, the male generative organ. And Lakshmi, Ramadevi, her shadow is Durga, she's the yoni. So the linga enters the yoni, and the Jivatma and Paramatma are injected into the pradhan. So now the material energy has the virya, the life particles, Jivatma and Paramatma, which now animate the pradhan. And it breaks up into different elements. We see that this table has a form. The earth has a form. The universe has a form. All these forms are maintained by Paramatma, who's in every atom and in between every atom. And all the living beings, down to the cell in your body, and up to the demigods in the universe like Brahma, are animated by the Jivatmas. So the Jivatmas animate everything. All living species. So here we see that this is happening between Shiva and Durga, who are what? They're the shadows. They're some, how do you say, not the original energy. They're the shadow, they're transformations of Lakshmi and Narayan into a shadow form of Shambhu and Durga. So therefore their conjugation creates a sound that has potency, but what kind of potency? It's the potency to create material energy, not spiritual energy. Prabhupada talks about this in the purport. It appears from this verse that all the objects of our sense gratification are products of egoism and ignorance. And at the end of this paragraph, he says, our entanglement in material form affairs has begun from material sound. There is sound in the spiritual world also. If we approach that sound, then our spiritual life begins. We have to understand very clearly that sound is the beginning of the creation of all material objects for our sense gratification. So all material objects for our sense gratification are created by the sound vibration that comes from the shadow sex play of Lakshmi and Narayan as Shambhu and Durga. And then he says in this purport that Vedanta Sutra, it is stated also in Vedanta Sutra that sound is the origin of all objects of material possession, and that by sound one can also dissolve this material existence. Anavriti Shabdat means liberation by sound. The entire material manifestation began from sound, and sound can also end material entanglement if it has a particular potency. That potency is there in the transcendental vibration of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So we see that originally this potent sound is given, transcendental sound is given to Lord Brahma. But Brahma deals with the tertiary creation. The primary creation is the glance of Mahavishnu. The secondary creation is Garbhodakshai Vishnu. And then Brahma begins the tertiary creation. So after this material manifestation has come about by the shadow sex play of Shiva and Durga, in order to untangle the entanglement of this web, Krishna gives the seed of transcendental sound to Brahma so that he can hand down that sound vibration which he will be given to the jivas, by which they can use it to untangle the web of material nature. So all of this we see from the perspective of Advaigyan Paratattva, that in the Advaita Vedanta, they're looking at things as Brahman, and so they're seeing that Brahman is transformed. And yet, the Gita tells us this very thing. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir Brahmagna Brahmanahutam Brahmanaiva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. So now Prabhupada talks about this in the purport. He says the word Brahman means spiritual. The Lord is spiritual, and the rays of his transcendental body are called Brahmajyoti. But we know that Brahmajyoti is not the ultimate. we know in Ishopanishads, Haranmayena Patrena Satyasya Pihitam Mukam. Please remove that effulgence and let me see your mukha, your face. So here, he's pointing out that that effulgence is spiritual. It is part of the Advaigyan Paratattva. Everything that exists is situated in that Brahma Jyoti. But when the Jyoti is covered by illusion, Maya, or sense gratification, it is called material. So the spiritual world and the material world, and in between, which is Mahavishnu on the Karnadak ocean, all of that is situated in the Brahma Jyoti. Everything is situated in the Jyoti. But here he's making the point that when the Jyoti is covered by illusion or Maya, then it becomes material. This material veil can be removed at once by Krishna consciousness. Thus the offering for the sake of Krishna consciousness, we make prasadam to offer. It's bhoga, it's not offered yet. The consuming agent of such an offering, the deity, which is made of different elements that appear in material, like brass or wood or marble. The process of consumption, the process of doing the puja, the ceremony for making the offering. The contributor, us, the living being who's making the offering. And the result, what happens at the end of this whole thing, which is prasadam, spiritual, the result are all combined together Brahman, or the absolute truth. The absolute truth covered by Maya is called matter. Matter dovetail for the cause of the absolute truth regains its spiritual quality. Krishna consciousness is the process of converting the illusory consciousness into Brahman, or the Supreme. So what the quantum physics people are looking at is this. They're looking at it from this perspective. They're seeing it's all connected as Brahman. They know that it's connected on some level, but they haven't understood the higher levels of Vedic science. They're looking at it only from the Brahman perspective, but not from Paramatma and not from Bhagavan. If they understood those scientific perspectives as are given in the descents of Ramanujacharya and Madhvacharya and Baldev Vijabhushan, then they would come to the conclusion that greater than viewing this as one whole is to view it as simultaneously one and different. Achinta Veda Veda Tat. That's the ultimate, that will be the ultimate conception once we can get the quantum physicists to view it from that perspective. That it's one, but it's also different at the same time. Because it's only one aspect. It's Brahman, and it's not Bhagavan. So, it starts off with transcendental sound in Lord Brahma's heart as the weapon, the seed, to transform this material energy. The material energy comes for the purpose of feeding our illusory desires and conceptions. But Krishna gives us a way out. And that way out is this transcendental sound vibration being handed down through the parampara in the form of Hare Krishna Mahamantra and Gayatri Mantra. So this transcendental sound vibration is the only anavriti shabdat. We can transform the sound vibration that is being given in this material world. All of this is sound. Everything that we're interacting is different material sounds. There's a whole other section that I could go into right now. It would take me another half an hour to go to that. Anyway, I've given you a lot tonight. This is a lot of information to chew on. Just try and understand this principle. That sound is the beginning and sound is the end of material and spiritual conceptions. Everything comes from sound, material and spiritual. And if we engage in the transcendental sound vibration of the holy name, then we can disentangle ourselves from the sounds of this material world. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna